So most people think that you can't have visible abs all year round. They think it's reserved for people who have great genetics, guys that are on steroids, or people who never go off plan and basically live like a monk. But here's the thing, I've been able to see my abs for well over a year now. I'm a natural lifter, I've got bang average genetics, and I don't restrict myself from anything. And you're probably wondering, Connor, how the hell do you do that? Well, there's a 3-step process to it, and I'm going to go over these steps in this video. And one of these steps is one that everybody gets wrong. So step number 1, you need to get lean first. You need to be lean enough to be able to see your abs. So you need to get your body fat to a low enough level so that your abs are becoming visible. And for guys, this is going to be roughly around about 15% as a bare minimum. 15%, and anything below that is going to give you visible abs. So it doesn't matter how often you train your abs, how many sets of crunches you do, you need to get your body fat to a low enough level, which means getting into a calorie deficit and spending time there. How long should you spend in a calorie deficit? Well, that depends on how much body fat you're holding. If only there was some sort of free download calculator that you could get that could tell you exactly how much body fat you have to lose and how long it's going to take you to get there. Wait a minute. There is. So head over to that link in the description, download my free ebook, How to Get Abs and Keep Them, and within that ebook is the tools that you need. We've got the abs timeline calculator and we've got the starting macros calculator. Now the abs timeline is the one that you're going to be most interested in. If you put your details in, so for example, I've got up here 90 kilo male at 30% body fat, aim is to get to 12% body fat. It's telling me that that will take between 5 to 9 months. You need to lose 18 kilos of body fat, and a sustainable pace of loss is between 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week. That makes your goal weight 72 kilos if we've got 18 kilos to lose. And that gives you a rough timeline and a rough target for what to aim for to get yourself lean enough to be able to see your abs. And if you head over to the My Numbers tab on that calculator as well, you can put your details in again. And what it'll do is it will punch out some numbers for you to start hitting when you want to start shredding body fat. So it'll give you the starting macros and starting calories depending on your age, weight, height, activity levels, and how fast a rate of loss you want to go for. Okay, so once you've downloaded that, you've got your time frame, you've got your starting macros. Now what I would suggest for most people is to create a meal plan to those exact macros. Now, you don't need to eat this meal plan, this exact meal plan every single day, but I think it's important for everybody to have a blueprint, something to base it off, because then you know roughly what to prep for each day, you know roughly what you're gonna have for each meal, and if you do decide to change it, just make sure the calories and the protein match and you get pretty much the same result from that. Again, make sure you are using mostly whole foods, you're eating healthy, and you're getting good sources of protein in there. So again, meat, eggs, dairy, all that kind of thing, so we're getting complete protein sources. If you do that and you follow it religiously and you don't slack, then you're going to lose body fat. You may need to make some adjustment to your macros because obviously they are just starting numbers, but if fat loss slows down for maybe like a week to 10 days, you're not seeing any changes in your physique, you're not seeing the scales moving, then that's when you're going to want to make a change to either your diet and drop the calories down, or maybe do a bit more activity to bring that side of things up. This bit is a bit tedious once you start to get hungry, once energy levels start to get low, which are side effects of getting lean enough to see your abs, but stick with it because this is an essential part of the process. And if you get this right, we can then move on to the next stage. So stage 2, and this is the bit that everybody gets wrong, it's the reverse diet. Most people, when they finish a fat loss phase, they can't wait to be done. Like I say, usually your hunger is through the roof and you just want to start eating all the things that you've been restricting yourself from during the dieting phase. There's no way to really get around that. Even when you do flexible dieting, you are going to have to restrict yourself to some degree. So these feelings are only natural at the end of a dieting phase. There's nothing wrong with once you get to a certain level of body fat, you know, going and having an off-plan meal, going and enjoying it. But what you don't want to think is that now the diet's over. Because when people do that, that's when they just let themselves have too much leeway and they end up ultimately just eating everything they've wanted to eat and piling back on the body fat. And it's tough. I mean, I've done this so many times before and I've only learned from my mistakes, having done this so many times in the past after dieting down for bodybuilding shows and getting to the stage where I was absolutely starving. The minute my diet was over, I would have like a stash of food to go eat. And the minute you start eating all those kind of things, you tell yourself, oh, my body's in a good position to start packing on muscle. But in reality, it's in a good position to start packing on fat. Trust me. So when it comes to reverse dieting, again, I'm not going to go too far into the mechanics of that because I have done a video on this before, which I'll link somewhere up here or maybe up there. I'm not sure which side it'll come on. But I'll link that video. You can go check that out if you want to know more about it. But essentially what this is it's jumping back out of the dieting phase. When I say jumping, I actually mean taking really small steps. So just like on a diet, how it's progressive that you will drop calories over time and up activity, when it comes to reverse dieting, we're kind of doing the opposite. we're jumping calories back up, or sorry, taking small steps back up, because if you do take too much of a jump, your body doesn't tend to catch up. But if you take small steps, your body tends to adapt. So you feed it a bit more, and then you start to have more energy, and then you start to feel good again. You start to train a little bit harder in the gym, so then you start burning more calories. And as you gradually bring your calories back up, your body tends to adapt to it quite well. And that way we can just keep pushing us up and pushing it up and pushing it up until you find basically the most amount of calories that you can eat, and probably the least amount of activity as well. If you've been doing a lot of cardio and things like that, you're going to want to bring that down. But the most amount of calories you can eat and still maintain your abs. Now, this stage can be a bit of a head fuck. First of all, the hunger that I talked about already, you will be tempted to rush it. You will be tempted to go into fuck it mode, but I urge you to stick with this because this is where most people go wrong. And the other thing is when you start to eat more food, then you're going to start to weigh a little bit more. But just because you weigh a little bit more and you've got more food in your system, maybe you're retaining a bit more water because you've been eating slightly more carbs, that doesn't mean that you're gaining body fat. Weight gain and fat gain are two different things. So make sure you do your progress pictures as well as just looking at what the scales are saying, because if you just go off what the scales are saying, sometimes it will give you a skewed reality of what's actually going on. Then you might lose the head a little bit, might try to diet it off a little bit again, and you'll be stuck in this constant yo-yo of getting nowhere. The psychology of reverse dieting definitely is the hardest part. So again, if you've got a coach, make sure you stick with them at this point to let them guide you through the process. And then finally, we get to the stage that I'm at, and that's stage 3. That's cruising. That's what I'm going to call it anyway. Once you've got your calories up to a point where you're eating as much as you can whilst maintaining a lean physique, you're going to be out of a calorie deficit by this point. So obviously we're no longer in a deficit. We're in a phase where we're sitting around maintenance or maybe slightly above maintenance. And this is where we're just going to main gain for whatever amount of time you want to do it for. That's the thing. Like, we're basically in a gaining phase here, but we've got out of the dieting phase in a way that's been safe, it's been effective, and you're still lean going into this gaining phase. So now we're pretty much in a main gain phase, which is cool, which is something that I recommend to most people. Again, if you're a new lifter and you've not got much muscle, maybe you're going to want to go in a bigger bulk because you're going to get a bit more out of it, and if you're willing to lose that body fat again. But for guys like me, we've gained a bit of muscle, we don't need to pack on tons and tons of tissue. You know, main gaining is a way forward. I like being lean all year round. I like being able to say, right, if I was to go on holiday next week, I'd be quite happy to take my top off by the pool. And that's what this leads to. And you only get to this stage by doing the first 2 stages correctly. So nailing your diet and then nailing your reverse diet. And at this point, you've got ultimate flexibility as well, because the more calories you're on, the more leeway you've got, the more you can be flexible within things. So if I'm going for a meal out tonight, for example, and I've got 3,000 calories, I'm maintaining on that, well, it's going to be much easier to fit in a meal out on 3,000 calories than it is on 1,500 calories, for example. When you've got that amount of calories, you can be so much more flexible. And the good thing is, it's not going to knock you off track, it's not going to put you out of shape, because you've got so much margin for error now. Whereas when you were dieting, when you're at the end of your dieting phase, if you didn't reverse your calories back up properly, you wouldn't have that same flexibility, and your body wouldn't be in a good position to actually do these things without packing on fat. Again, at this point, I would still stick to a meal plan for the most part, because I just think it makes it easier. Having like a blueprint as to how you would eat most days just makes life so much easier. I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I'm having for breakfast, I know exactly what I'm having for lunch, I know exactly what I'm having for the meal after that. My dinner with my missus, that is one thing that I switch up, but other than that, like the same meals every single day. And it's not to say that I don't switch them up the odd time, but most of the time I'll eat the same meals, and it just takes the thought out of it. We're all living busy lives nowadays, and the less we've got to think about these things, the easier it is. You just kind of go into autopilot. So at this stage, I just think you want to make it simple for the most part, you want to stick to the same things for the most part, but you've also got that flexibility to come off the plan. And at that stage, now you're lean, you're able to maintain it with relative ease, and you're not going to go backwards from this point, because your body's leveled out from that reverse dieting phase. You're no longer feeling as intense hunger, you're not feeling the cravings the same. It's just a nice place to be. The only thing that's bad about it is it's hard to get here in the first place, because we've got to nail those first 2 phases. But like I say, all the answers are in my free ebook, which you can download via the link in the description. Okay guys, if that was helpful, please make sure to hit subscribe, because there's videos like this coming week after week. And if there is anything you want to see, don't be afraid to drop me a comment.